In the name of Allah, the all-knowing, the all-wise. I am Yasin from Al-Mawrid Institute Canada, and we are honored and privileged to welcome Mr. Sheraz Ahmad to teach us an understanding of the Quran through Al-Bayan. As we know that Mr. Sheraz has studied Tafheem al-Quran, Taddabur-e Quran, Tarjuma-e Quran, message of the Quran, and he is an avid student of Dr. Shahzad Salim. And without further delaying the session, I will hand over the mic to our respected teacher, and hopefully we can begin soon. Assalamu alaikum to everyone.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and thank you, Yasin bhai, for the lovely introduction. Yasin bhai has already introduced me. By profession, I'm a software engineer, right, working in the field for around 20 years. And yes, I have a passion for Quran. And I was lucky enough decades ago to come across Sheraz Salim, and he kind of adopted me. So he's like an elder brother to me. He's my mentor. He's my teacher. And yes, I have met Javed Ahmed Ghamidi as well. So I'm not associated to Al-Mawrid in that context, that I'm not an employee of Al-Mawrid. And I study other scholars as well. But the explanation related to Quran that was given by Javed Ahmed Ghamidi as well as Brother Sheraz Salim, it made the most sense to me. Looking at the text of the Quran, the context of the Quran, that explanation sound most logical to me as compared to other explanations. That's why I adopted it. So today and the next couple of lectures or classes or discussion sessions, whatever you want to call them, whatever connotation you want to give to them, they will be about the introduction of the Quran. And the reason that I chose to spend a few lectures on the introduction of Quran was because when I started studying Quran back in 2005, it kind of didn't make sense to me. The style in which Quran was presenting certain information, it wasn't in chronological order. It's neither a poem nor a prose. Its writing style was totally unfamiliar to me. I haven't read any book in my career or in my life that even remotely comes close to the writing style of Quran. So I had this question all the time in my mind. What is Quran? Okay, fine. And after that, after a few years, when I was a bit more comfortable in reading Quran, still there are certain things that were discussed in Quran that kind of sounded, for the lack of any better word, a bit weird, right? Because at one place Quran is saying something, at another place Quran is saying something else. How we are going to reconcile the two? So without any further ado, we're going to directly jump into the presentation that I have made. I'm going to just quickly skim through this. I will share the information. And at the end of this, let's say in the next, after 20 to 25 minutes, we can have a question answer section, right? So we will spend the last 10 minutes in discussing or having a question answer session around whatever we have discussed or whatever we are going to discuss in today's session. And this introduction of Quran topic will continue for the next 2 or 3 sessions, I presume, not more than that. And after that, we are going to jump into Quran. We will start studying from Surah Fatiha, and if God wills, all the way up to Surah Nas. So first of all, do let me know if you can see the screen. If you can see the presentation, it's clear to everybody.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Okay, great. So introduction to Quran. This is about myself, so that quickly. Let's see what we are going to discuss today. So first we will quickly skim through some of the background related to Quran. And I have divided it into 3 different, main topics, categories, chapters, whatever. Mankind, religion, and Prophet Ibrahim specifically, Abraham as we call him in English. So under the mankind section, we're going to study the creation purpose of mankind, why mankind was created in the first place, what was the purpose behind mankind's creation. What was the trust, in Urdu we call it amanat, that was given to the mankind, and how God gave mankind guidance in order to be able to fulfill their purpose. This is something that we're going to discuss very quickly. And almost this entire presentation is almost entirely based upon the verses of the Quran, right? Or at least I try to do so. So it's a background of the Quran, as well as of the religion, of Islam, of other divine books, prophethood, messengerhood, in the light of Quran itself. So it's a history of Quran explained by Quran itself. First of all, who's the creator of mankind, right? A question that all of the Muslims are quite familiar with, right? And when your Lord, it's chapter number 2, verse number 30, and when your Lord said to the angels, let me put this sidebar aside. Okay. And when your Lord said to the angels, indeed, I will make upon the earth its successive authority. The Arabic word used here is Khalifa. So God is talking to the angels about a creation that he has yet to create. Obviously, the mankind within the context, when you will know once we're going to read these verses. So who's our creator? God Almighty. Why did God create us at first place? It's mentioned in chapter 51, verse 56. I did not create the jinn and the mankind except to worship me. Now, this worship sounds like a loaded word. We're going to look into it in a bit more detail very soon. But so far we know that Almighty Allah created mankind, and the purpose of our creation is to worship our creator. We haven't defined yet what is the meaning of worship, but we at least know that the purpose of our creation is to worship Lord. Okay, trust. Indeed, chapter number 33, verse 72, it's a very famous verse of Surah Ahzab. Indeed, we offer the trust to heavens and earth and the mountains, and they declined to bear it and feared it, but man undertook to bear it. What is this trust? This is the capability to exercise your free will and do good or evil after knowing what's virtue and what's vice, after knowing what's good and what's evil. This capability to exercise this free will is given to us by God. And mankind accepted it, that, okay, please give me this capability. I'm going to exercise it. Despite of having the capability to do evil, I'm still going to worship you. I'm still going to stay obedient to you. And at the end, reward me for not going against your command, your will, despite of having the power to do it. So far, very simple concepts. We learned God is our creator. Our purpose is to worship God. And we have been given the authority to exercise free will in this life. Okay, so if God has given us the authority to exercise our free will, how do we know what's right and what's wrong, what we shall be doing or what we shouldn't be doing, right? Did God provide us some sort of guidance? When we study Quran, we come to know that there are two types of guidances that God has provided to mankind right from the beginning. This is not something that evolved over time. This is something that existed right from the first human being, Adam and Eve, the first couple. These statements are even true for them. And when we're going to look into more detail into Quran, we will realize that this has always been the case. Since the existence of mankind, God arranged for our guidance. He made a proper arrangement that we get guidance, right? But there are two types of guidance. One is innate. It's within ourselves. We don't need anything external for this guidance. This is something that we are born with. And the second type of guidance is what we call revelation. So the innate guidance, if you look at chapter 7, verse 172 and verse 173, what it tells us, and it's normally called Ahde Alas. This is something that happened before our bodily creation in this world. right? In what we normally call Orme Arwa or Alamul Ghaib, right? So we don't understand the exact reality of this incident. That's why Quran had explained it to us as if this incident is occurring in this world. So when your Lord took from the children of Adam, from their loins, their descendants, and made them testify to themselves. What? Saying to them, am I not your Lord? They said, yes, we testify. Means that we testify that you are our Lord. So I'm going to stop here. I'm not even going to read the rest of the verse. What is being taught here? That the concept that we have a creator exists in our very consciousness, in our soul, in our spirit, whatever word you want to give to this phenomena. Now, we don't remember this entire incident, just like we don't remember being in the wombs of our mother. But naturally, a child tilts towards their mother. Whenever this concept is presented to a human being, and as long as they don't show any bias towards it, they are open about the truth, they can overcome their own bias and their own ego, they will definitely accept this because it's built into human nature. At least this is what the Quran is teaching us in these verses. Again, I'm not going into detail of these verses, but a lot more can be said about it. But for now, whatever I have just shared, I'm going to stick to it because we have to discuss a lot of things. So it's not an in-detail session of everything we're going to discuss on the topic of introduction of Quran. It's just mentioning briefly that, entire theme we are building around our concept of this book, what we call the Quran. So first thing that's innate in our nature is the concept of God, that we have a creator. Number two, it's mentioned in chapter 91, verse 7 to 10. And by the soul, and he who proportioned it and inspired it with what? With its wickedness and its righteousness. So we have this built-in, incarnated concept of right and wrong, good and evil. You don't need any divine book. The humanity don't need any divine book to agree upon that there should be justice in the world. Everybody shall speak the truth. There should not be any injustice. We should not acquire forcefully the wealth of an orphan unjustly. So established phenomena of morality are already built into our nature. So again, I'm going to stop here. So the part of the guidance that was incarnated into human nature was twofold. It contains two major things. The concept of God is not something that mankind is unaware of. It's built into our nature according to chapter 7, verses 172 and 173. Concept of one creator. Number two, the concept of good or bad, evil, the established morality. Quran also uses the word maruf and munkar to describe this good and evil, this wickedness and righteousness. So maruf is good, munkar is evil. It's built into our nature. So this is the type of guidance for which we don't need anything external, not even the book of God. That's why if once you're going to study Quran, you won't find any list given by Quran. Okay, first of all, Quran won't tell you, let me explain to you why we shall speak truly, why there should be justice in society, why this and that, things that we already know as established virtues. Quran doesn't provide us a concrete list of these things. Why? Because the same Quran is telling us that this information is already there with us, right? Then what's the purpose of revelation? Why we needed revelation in the first place when we already had this information with us? So, in chapter 2, verse 38 to 39, first of all, in these verses, God tells us that, okay, God is telling Adam and Eve, go, just enjoy yourselves in this world. And obviously, you have to be here for a certain time period. It's not going to be infinite. And once there comes to you any guidance from myself, whosoever is going to follow that guidance will go to paradise. Whosoever is going to reject that guidance, knowingly, willfully, right, is going to go to hell, right? So revelation, by definition, is a guidance from God. We still haven't defined what worship is. If you recall, I pointed it out, but never defined it. But revelation is what? Guidance from God. Secondly, when God decided to give us this revelation, after we already had this innate guidance. Chapter 2, verse 213 explains it very well. And by the way, this is not the complete verse. It's a large verse, right? But I think whatever portion of it I have quoted over here shall suffice for the topic that we're discussing at the moment. Mankind was of one religion. Now remember, God created Adam and Eve, sent them to this world, right? And they had children, and their children had children, so on and so forth. And they transferred the knowledge that they had about God, about religion, to everybody. And it was kind of an established history back then. Moreover, mankind had this innate knowledge, this consciousness that already tells them about existence of one God, one creator, and virtue and vice, good and evil. So mankind was okay with this information. They were very happy with this information. But men being men, what happened was mankind was of one religion, chapter 2, verse 230, before they started their deviation from it, before they deviated. And once history reached a stage where God decided that, okay, they won't be able to resolve it among themselves, what did he do? Then Allah sent prophets, Nabi, the Arabic word. And in this presentation, I will specifically focus on the term Nabi and the term Rasul and their key differences. It's very important to understand these differences in order to be able to understand the Quran. So Allah sent prophets for what? As a bringer of good tidings and warners. Bashir wa Nazira. They give Basharat, they do Anzar. Meaning what? They give glad tidings to those who accept the message of truth, that they will get paradise, and they warn people. They do Anzar, meaning they warn people who reject the message about the consequences of their actions in the hereafter. So prophets were sent to this world for this purpose. But what made these prophets any different than any other human being who were already, debating the topic of religion, debating the topic of what was right, what was good, who already deviated from the guidance that was an established history from the time of Adam? These prophets were directly guided. They were directly given guidance by God, unlike you and me. We have this innate guidance, but outside is God does not communicate to me like my mother does, or like Yasin Bhai does, right? So these prophets were given guidance directly by God, and that guidance is called revelation, as we see in 238 to 39. So along with these prophets, the job of prophet is giving glad tidings and warning. So they were sent as warners. Number two, along with these prophets, God sent down scriptures, books, the Quran and Kareem, right? So what was the purpose of giving these books? The scriptures were given to them in truth to judge between the people concerning that in which they differed. So when two human beings or a group of human beings, they disagree in the matter of guidance, the purpose of mankind, what's right, what's wrong, who's going to be the ultimate judge? The book of God. I don't even know the name of the first book that was revealed to any prophet, because Quran doesn't mention it in that way. Quran doesn't mention the name of the first revelation. But it was what? Furqan, Nizam. We will see these terms. It was a judge. So the purpose of the prophet is to give the guidance, to give glad tidings and warnings. The purpose of the book is to judge in the matters in which people disputed. One more time. Human beings already had innate guidance. So the purpose of the book was not to guide human beings who were deaf, dumb, and blind before that. They weren't. But they started disputing in the matters of guidance, and the books came to solve those disputes, to resolve their disputes. So we need to very clearly understand the purpose of the divine revelation, the books. And Quran is a scripture. It's a divine book. It's a divine revelation. So by definition, what's the purpose of Quran? Quran will do what's written over here. But that's why God sent books. Okay. In this verse, chapter 2, verse 213, mankind was of one religion. There is still a term that we yet have to define what does worship actually means. Now we come across another term. What is religion? Okay, we understand what guidance is, what innate guidance is, what conscious is. We are aware of these things. For that, we don't need to study religion. But what is religion? What is Quranic viewpoint of religion? Okay, let's very quickly skim through certain, definitions or Quranic perspective of religion so that we don't have any confusion around these subjects. What's the essence of religion? It's mentioned in chapter 16, verse 36. And we certainly sent into every nation a messenger saying what? Worship Allah, avoid Taghut. So here I see two words. Worship versus Taghut. Worship is something this verse is telling me to do. Taghut is something this verse is telling me not to do. In Quran, the word Taghut and Shaitan, they're synonyms. What does they mean, depict, reflect? Two things. This word Taghut reflects or means two things. Arrogance, rebellion. So when a creature is arrogant in front of its creator and it's rebellious to the commandments of its creator, it's the satanic attitude or Taghut. Worship is used opposite to Taghut in this verse. So if being a Taghut is being, proud is not the right word, having vanity and what? Rebellion. Then arrogance and rebellion, what is the opposite of these two? Humility, servility. So if a person is humble in front of his or her creator and subservient to his commands, this is called worship. Your inner self and your outer self, your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions, which is your practical life, your outer self. If all of this is subservient to your God, if you're humble in letter and spirit in front of your God, you're worshiping your God. This is what the term worship means. Humility and servility. So if we have to define the term worship, worship prescribes metaphysical and ethical basis, okay, and then we have to define some rituals and stipulate some bounds and limits, and this put it all together, it's called religion. Deen. So it has a metaphysical and ethical basis, generally what we call them imaniyat and akhlaqiyat. And yes, it's a relationship between the person and a God in which the person is what? Humble and subservient to their God. So this relationship, like any other relationship, has some basis. And the basis of this relationship of worship between the creator and the creation, a man and his Lord, is what? It's metaphysical and ethical. These are the basis. Imaniyat, akhlaqiyat. And then in this relationship, we have some rituals. Okay, great. We are aware of certain rituals, right? There are rituals in every religion. And then obviously there will be some bounds and limits. The religion is going to stipulate upon us, right, to do certain things and not to do certain things, right? It's going to put certain conditions on us. Most of them will be related to our practical lives, and some of them will be related to our conscious as well. So all this put together is what? religion. This is called religion, deen. What is the content of this religion? According to Quran, it's mentioned in chapter 2, verse 231. And remember the favor of Allah upon you and what has been revealed to you, Al-Kitab and Al-Hikmah, by which He instructs you. There is another word used for Al-Kitab in another verse of Quran. It's called Sharia. So Kitab also means a book. Kitab means a law, a natural law, right? The earth revolves around the sun. It's also a kitab of God. It's also a law defined by God. So, and for us human beings, kitab also means law. But in this particular context, the laws define in a religion. We just defined religion. So it does have rituals and it stipulates bounds and limits. So all these stipulations and the way to perform rituals are defined in what? The kitab section, the law section. And the basis, which are metaphysical and ethical, imaniyat and iflaqiyat, are covered in what section? In the wisdom part, the hikmah part. So religion has hikmah, religion has laws, rules, sharia, by which God instructs us. Fine. How we get this religion? If you remember, we just discussed the entire mankind was on one religion. But when they started differing about it, God sent what? Prophets. The same verse, chapter 2, verse 213. It's repeated over here, but not fully. And prophets do what? They give good tidings and they warn people. And obviously the audience of good tidings and the people they warn, they're different, depending upon whether you accept the truth or not. So this is in reality what religion is. It's a relationship between you and God, but it does not only cover your thoughts, your appreciation of your God, it also covers your practical life. That's where Sharia comes into play. That's where the rules, the bounds, the stipulations comes into play. Okay, so prophets are people who receive divine guidance and they share that guidance with the humanity. So they are representatives of God in that sense. There are special prophets. Not every prophet is a messenger or a Rasul, but there are some of the prophets are all called Rasul in Quran. The term is Rasul. The English translation is messenger. So do they do something additional to normal prophets that they have been given a special title? Yes. It's mentioned in chapter 10, verse 47. And for every nation is a messenger. For every nation is a messenger. And primarily it's talking about pre-Abrahamic era, but let's not go into that much detail. For every nation, there's a messenger. Okay, so when their messenger comes, it will be judged between them in justice, and they will not be wrong. So when a Rasul is sent to a nation, they will be judged on this very same planet. God is not going to wait till the day of judgment to make a decision about them and implement that decision. For normal people, for rest of the humanity, what is the general rule? What is the general understanding? Which is the correct understanding, by the way? That God has sent us to this world. We are here to do what? To worship God. We already studied. God has not created man and jinn for any other purpose, but to worship Him. Worship is what? Humility, servility. We are humble to our master and we are going to serve our master. We will do whatever our master is going to ask us. That guidance is provided us in two ways. It's in our nature, in our conscious, that's called innate guidance, which provides us two types of information. One, we know it in our conscious that we have one creator. Number two, the basic understanding of morality, virtue and vice, good and evil. Once we're going to differ about any of this, once we started differing about all this, God sent messengers and books. The purpose of book was to act as a judge, as a scale, as a guide, that it's going to decide who's right in the matters of guidance and religion and purpose and worship, etc., etc. Who's right in the matter of religion? What is the purpose of prophets? to give guidance to people, because God is communicating directly to them, not to the rest of the mankind, and they are responsible to share this guidance with the rest of the humanity. It's their responsibility, it's their job. So they are Bashir, Nazir. They are going to give glad tidings and they are going to warn people. Among those prophets, some of them were chosen by God and their status was uplifted. They were not merely prophets, they were also Rasul. And to their direct addresses, it's Sunnatullah, which we're going to see right in a short while, maybe not today, maybe in the next section, that God is going to either punish them or reward them. And God did punish and reward them, the direct addresses of the Rasuls, the messengers, in this very word. So God kind of make this historical incident, this miniature judgment day, as a demo that has been played in front of us. It's the part of established history. We all should learn from it before the actual day of judgment comes. So these are miniature judgment days that resulted out once the guidance that was supposed to be given to an audience through a messenger was completely given to an audience, and they understood it and they still rejected it. So messengers are special prophets, but with them tied an additional rule, judgment in this world, not waiting for the hereafter. Purpose of the books, we already discussed it. What is the purpose of the book? To judge between the people concerning in which they differ in the matter of religion. In chapter 25, verse 1, Quran is called Furqan, but other books are divine books are called Furqan as well. For example, Quran calls Torah Furqan. So every divine book is Furqan. Furqan means what? The distinguisher between right and wrong. The divine books are also called in chapter 57, verse 25, Mizan, the scale. Just put right and wrong on this scale, and this scale is going to tell you what's right and what's wrong. Just weigh it over here. What is the objective of religion? So, okay, we're going to get heaven as an end result. If we're going to go to paradise if we do everything according to God's will. But when this guidance is given to us in this world, the religion is related to this world. And hereafter, there is no religion, right? So, as per my understanding, the religion is related to this world. All the bounds, the stipulations, the do's, the don'ts, oh, that list. What's the primary objective of all these do's and don'ts? Chapter 62, verse 2 clearly explains it. I'm not going to read the entire verse, but focus on this word, purifying. In Arabic, it's called tazkiyah. So God sent messengers, along with them, he sent books. To do what? What is the purpose of this entire guidance, which we call religion, whether innate or external, in the form of books? To purify human beings. The religion wants to purify our faith, our thoughts, our morality, our body, our action. Tazkiyah. God wants to select pure people. In Urdu, we call them Pak, right? Pure people for his paradise. So in one word, if you have to explain the objective of the religion, it's purifying, purification, tazkiyah. What is the attitude that the Quran expects one to have towards religion? Do it at the best, at your level best. The Quranic word for this is ihsan. And who is better in religion than one who submits himself to Allah while being a doer of good and follow the religion of Abraham, inclining towards the truth? So submit yourself at the best of your capabilities. And that's what ihsan means. So don't just try to do something that, okay, God has asked me, let me just fulfill it by name. No, just do it at your level best. This is the attitude that's required from you. You won't be asked of anything for which you have not given any capability of. It's already 7:34, and I promised you that I will spend the last 10 minutes in question answer session. So this is what we have covered today. Mankind, religion, right? We will discuss the basics. So a quick recap. Purpose of mankind, to worship God. Who created mankind? God Almighty. Now, if we have to worship God, did God share any guidance about it? Yes, it was our nature, and also provided to us through prophets via books. Was the first couple of mankind, Adam and Eve, were aware of all these concepts? Absolutely yes, according to Quran. Are these concepts established since the day one? Yes. Was this information transferred to other generations through consensus as an established history? Yes. But like any other subject matter, we human beings have the tendency to differ. And we started differing on these subjects. And then how God resolved that issue? By sending prophets and books. The purpose of prophet is to give glad tidings and to give warnings. The purpose of the book is to resolve the matters in which we are differing, matters related to religion, not physics and chemistry or any other subject for that matter, right? So this is briefly what we have discussed so far. What is religion? It's God guidance. Anyways, I'm going to stop now. Go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up and being such a wonderful audience today. So the best thing would be to raise your hand and then we can ask a question. Go ahead, Humayun Sahab.
Sir, I'm from, good evening, sir. I am from Kashmir. And would you like to listen me? Am I audible to you?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. I have not heard fully your lecture, but I want to expose the question that what are the basic principles to understand the Holy Quran, as I have many times heard a series of lectures from Ustad Ghamidi Sahab in my brain, in my ideology, that Arabic language is the basic requirement to understand the Holy Quran. But I want to know that are there other requirements to understand the Holy Quran in letter and separate on merit. I want to listen from your valuable advice. Thank you, sir.
Actually, what you've asked me is, are you aware of Javed Ahmed Ghamidi's book Mizan?
Yeah.
English translation of it, Islam, a comprehensive introduction. The entire first chapter is principles of understanding Quran. And yes, we need to understand Arabic language. We need to understand the eloquence of the language. We need to understand the unique style of the Quran, as well as we should be aware of the previous scriptures, the historicity of the religion, everything and all that. Quran comes, right, keeping a certain religious background knowledge in mind. Quran didn't come in thin air. So there's a long list of things that we need to understand in order to be able to understand the Quran directly. If I'm reading the Quran directly, and suppose you and I we do already know Arabic, then we shall be able to understand the Quran as long as we know the Arabic that existed 1400 years ago. Not today's Arabic, not something in which the Arabian newspapers are published. Also, if we have a background knowledge of Bani Israel and other things, in the context of which the Quran was revealed, Quran will make far more sense to us, right? But this question requires a longer answer. But I will encourage you to read the first chapter of Javed Ahmed Ghamidi's book Mizan, which specifically covers this question in great detail.
Yeah,
and it's available both in Urdu and English.
Yeah, sir. Would I elaborate some things, sir? Would you like to permit me?
Sure, go ahead. But be quick. We shall give others a chance to ask questions as well. Go ahead.
Sir, when we talk about Arabic language and Quranic language, I mean Arabic language, Arabic literature, and Quranic language, is there any difference between Arabic language, Arabic literature, and Quranic Arabic? Is there any difference, or it is the same thing?
As far as the language is concerned, it's absolutely the same. I'm talking to you in English, right? And my mother tongue is Urdu, and they are great poets who wrote poetry in Urdu. So Iqbal also spoke in Urdu, wrote his poetry in Urdu. The language would be the same, the grammar would be the same, but we need to understand their style, the way in which they speak. It's very different as compared to how we speak Urdu in 2022-23 in Lahore, right?
Yeah.
So Arabic is exactly the same. The grammar never changes, right? The rules of the language never changes. The meaning of the word never changes, whether they were used 1400 years ago or they are being used today. It's the style in which certain things are said. For example, in Quran, it's very common that if Quran is mentioning something and certain thing is obvious, Quran is not going to mention it in words. The Quranic style is that on part of the reader, as long as they are attentive, they shall presume that this thing is said without it being written down in words. So it's the writing style of the Quran that's different. It's the way the Quran communicates in Arabic that's different. It has nothing to do with the language or the grammar. The language, the grammar remains the same. They are part of the established, knowledge that comes down through generations. So there is no difference as far as the language is concerned.
Sir, that when we go through the classical Arabic, for example, at that time, first stage, that stage is called as Jahiliya period, and that time was Imra'ul Qais, Nabiga Zubiani, Antara bin Shaddad, and Amr bin Kulsum, or different extra other poetess. And that time that was classical Arabic, not Umayyad door or Islamic door or Abbasi door. And that time was Jahiliya door poetess. And that time that Quran was revealed. Quran was revealed. And your point hints means that we have to go through classical Arabic. Then we can get better understanding about Quran. I am right.
Better. Yeah, you use the right word. We're going to get better understanding of the Quran. And for scholars of Quran or for somebody who wants to become a scholar of Quran, it's an absolute must, right? But for a layman, right, they can extract the basic, commandments from the Quran, even with their current knowledge of Arabic without going through the classic Arabic, but they won't be able to understand the beauty of the Quranic language until they study the classic literature.
Yeah, definitely, sir. Yeah, definitely, sir. It means, sir, one school of there are different methodology, different mechanism, and one principal methodology in Imam Hamidin Farahi Sahab, and the principle which he has adopted, and it means that that goes into right speculation that is very beneficial and helping hand to understand the Holy Quran. That Imam Hamid Farahi Sahab, which ideology, which basic principle he has adopted, same is for us.
Okay, this is going to be my last response in this regard. First of all, Javed Ahmed Ghamidi or Imam Amin Hassan Islai or Imam Hamiduddin Farahi, they cannot change the rules of the language. It's not up to them to define the rules of the language. So they didn't define anything new as far as Arabic grammar or language is concerned. I understand what you're asking, but if I go into for example, one of the key rules of Al-Mawrid is that the Quran shall be interpreted in the light of Quran itself. And everything else, every other religious literature that exists on the face of the planet shall be subservient to Quran. We just studied, right, in Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse 213, when mankind differed among themselves. What were they differing about? Physics, chemistry, biology, or some other topic? Philosophy? Yeah. No. About religion, about guidance. God sent what? Prophets, along with them sent what? Books. As what? Furqan, Mizan. So if the book of the God is Furqan and Mizan, the distinguisher, the scale in the matter of religion and guidance, then everything else that's claiming to provide the knowledge of religion or guidance shall be judged in the light of what? The book of God. When the God Almighty revealed Quran, I think if I don't remember the reference of the verse correctly, I think it's chapter 5, verse 48. Quran is saying that God has sent down Quran as a muhaymin, or even over the previous revelations, as a guardian, even over the previous revelations. Previous revelations were sent by whom? God. Through whom?
God.
Prophets. Even those revelations will be judged in the light of what? Quran.
The
So
Holy
if
Quran.
we are reading Quran, and the Quran clearly says, you will see it in the next few lectures. I have mentioned those verses, alhamdulillah, in this presentation. Quran clearly says that this Quran is clear in Arabic Mubin, right? It expresses everything that it is planning to express in a clear-cut way. There's
Yes.
nothing that's half-cooked in this book. So if the Quran is saying it's absolutely clear, do we believe in Quran? Yes.
Yeah.
It is absolutely clear. It doesn't require anything external to elaborate upon its meaning. Yes, external sources, hadith, tafseer, seerah, can provide us additional information that's not mentioned in Quran. It's good to have information. I love that information. I bow down to that information. But based upon anything outside Quran, I'm not going to change the understanding of a verse that's evident from the Arabic of the Quran itself. The meaning of Quran cannot be altered and self-supersede everything that comes under the umbrella of what we call religion. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for everybody on joining us on this beautiful day. Alhamdulillah, we had a good discussion, a good lecture, and we shall meet you next time on same time, 9 a.m. Saturday. Thank you, Sheraz Ahmed. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, Yasin. Thank you, everybody. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.
Canada.
I have to follow it.